Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. And so today the webinar is all about how to set up, promote, and deliver a webinar to your clients. Let me share my screen with you guys and we can get started. So hopefully you can all see that now. So basically what I want to share with you today and what I want the outcome to be from today is to help you and to give you the tools that you need and give you a step-by-step process so you can come away with this with the confidence and with the tools that you need to run your own webinar for your clients and prospects, hopefully within the next 7 to 10 days, right? So I'm going to take you through why you should be doing a webinar. Hopefully it will resonate and it'll be compelling enough to really give you that confidence to come away from this and say, yes, I'm going to book it in the diary and we're going to get a webinar done. I'm going to give you the step-by-step process. So there should be no issue about, oh, I don't know how to set up Zoom, or I'm not sure, it'll take me time to get the email templates ready, to get the slides ready. I'm going to give you all of that. So everything you actually need to set up, deliver, and promote the webinar, I'm going to give you in terms of resources. So all you need to do is to commit to yourself and to this group after this webinar to say, yes, I am going to do a webinar for my clients if you haven't ever done a webinar before. And that's what I want from today. There's nothing else in it today. This is a free webinar. It's a value webinar. There's no sales pitch in this. A lot of you here will be already on my mentoring or mastermind programs, and there's a lot of you here who aren't, but I've kind of opened this up because I want us as accountants to be leading the way in terms of helping the business profession through these times. It's tough being a business owner at the moment. It's lonely. It's madness. It's challenging times out there for a lot of our clients. And we want them to come to us for help because we want to be seen as their trusted advisor. So this is just another way of us adding value, of us helping business owners to survive through all of this, through answering their questions and giving them support and guidance and signposting that they want and require during these times. So that is my motivation for doing this, for helping you guys so you can help your clients, and together we are making an impact to the business profession, leading the light as accountants. Okay, agenda for today, guys, is as follows. Why do we need to do webinars? I'm going to cover that off first. So there is some motivation for you in terms of why we should be doing them. I will then take you through practical setup of Zoom webinars. So what kind of account do you need? How do you set up the settings within Zoom webinar before going live? How to promote the webinar. So once you've set it up and chosen a date, how do you get that across to your clients and to your prospects? How to deliver it. So I'll show you the slides that I use, and I'm going to be sharing those with you so you can change the colors, put your logo on, and essentially use the same slides. But just be wary. I did that week before last, so it was relevant at that time. Clearly things are changing by the day, so just check in terms of any newer releases or clarifications that have come out from the government in that time period. To update the slides accordingly. How to handle Q&A. So Q&A is an important part of any webinar because you want to be able to give the opportunity to your audience to ask you questions. And so I'll talk you through how to handle the Q&A if you've never done it before. How to add even more value on a webinar. So some power tips. How to follow up afterwards. So that's really important in terms of giving your audience a follow-up and actually capturing data and email addresses and surveys and that sort of thing whilst you're doing it. You want to make sure that you maximize the opportunity of every webinar that you do to assist you with your list building and your marketing exercises. And then after this, so hopefully they will get this all wrapped up within the hour, and then I'll open up to Q&A. And what I want you to do this time, normally I let you off and I just let you put questions in the Q&A box, but this time round, I would like you to click the raise hand button in the middle if you want to ask a question at the end, and then turn your webcam on. In fact, what I might ask you to do at the end is for everybody to turn their webcams on so we can all see each other, put yourselves on mute, and then when you want to ask a question, raise hand, middle button, and then you can practice actually being live and Oh, you're raising hands already. Okay, just keep your hands down for a second. But I'm thinking we're probably just testing out whether that button works. And clearly it does. You can see Rita has raised her hand. But I'll be asking you to do that at the end. So raise your hands at the end if you want to ask a question. But everybody's going to be putting their webcams on. So it doesn't matter if you're in your pajamas or your onesies. Not an issue. It doesn't matter where you are. But let's kind of get that interaction going. Let's get you comfortable and familiar with being on screen, because, you know, I think this, if there's ever a time to become more confident on camera, it's now, given the way the world is and the way the world is going, and the fact that we're going to be in lockdown for a very long period of time. So we need to be doing more of this, getting ourselves out there, out of our comfort zone. It's always the things that we fear the most, that we find most difficult to do. They are the things we actually need to be doing to grow. Okay, guys. Mark has a meeting at 3, so we'll need to go. Getting out of it, Mark. But you're all right. You've already done a few, so you're okay. Okay, so moving on. Why do a webinar in the first place? So there's several reasons why you should do a webinar. Firstly, it's a great way to reach all your clients in one go. How else can you do this? Aside from, you know, booking out a conference room and inviting everyone, and all the rigmarole and effort that goes into organizing an in-person event, the time, the cost, and actually the numbers that turn up out of your whole client base is probably minimal percentage. Webinars are a great way to reach the masses. So essentially a one-to-many model, relatively low cost, in fact, extremely low cost, and very minimal time input on your side as well in terms of the preparation work required beforehand. So it's a great way of getting in front of all your clients in one go and in front of your prospects at the same time. It's a way of showcasing your credibility and expertise. It is no different from being on a stage or giving a talk in a short room. You being in someone's room, wherever they are, on a webinar like this showcases that you have credibility in your particular area of expertise. And that then, again, raises the bar in terms of how you are seen, the perception of value that your audience has, your clients and prospects alike, about you as their trusted advisor, as an accountant who knows, as someone who is proactive, as someone who adds incredible value and wants to help business owners. So it's a great way essentially of doing marketing, because essentially marketing is all about positioning yourself. And this is one of my 4 pillars in the 4-pillar framework: positioning yourself as the credible expert, as the authority in your field. And any which way you can do that is going to help you with your marketing, because the first stage of marketing is awareness. You know, there's 3 things in marketing: there's know, there's like, and there's trust. No one can like you or trust you if they don't know you. So you need to be known. You need to create more awareness about you, and webinars are a great way of doing so. It also gives you content for social media. A lot of the time I hear from accountants that we don't know what to write about. We don't know what kind of content to put out. Well, if you're doing a webinar for your clients and your prospects, then it's a great way of you sharing something on social media that is of value to your potential targets. And the fact that you're even just posting about it, it gives you a reason to post, because you've got an event going on and you need to promote that event. So you're going to go out there and put it on social media because it's free, but it gets you out there, it gets you known. And that is the first stage of marketing, to get known. And of course, it's good practice. It's good practice to do webinars. You've got to start somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, as long as it's done. And that's the most important thing, because it's going to be even more important in these days, where it's going to become even more commonplace. I mean, you must be inundated with the invitations to webinars that you're getting, that you're seeing on social media. They're rife. It's going to be the new way of interacting. You know, we're not going to have any major conferences probably for the next 9 months to a year. And therefore, if you want to get yourself out there and build your presence, awareness about yourself, then we're going to have to be doing more videos. We're going to have to do more webinars, more video meetings with clients. And it's good practice for you to get on to turn the webcams on and start talking It's not easy. I mean, when I first started, I used to hate it. If you haven't done one, you're probably feeling the same, that you don't like the sound of your voice, or you can't stand yourself on camera, or you might get stage fright, but it just takes practice. And once you've done one or two, then you just get in the flow. I remember my journey has started less than a year ago. I had done 0 videos before May of last year, probably because I was in the same place, the voices in your head and all the rest of it. But then I just plucked up the courage to do 1 or 2, and then I was on a roll. And you can do the same. You can absolutely do the same. You've got to start somewhere. Okay, so let's get on to the techie stuff. How to set up Zoom. So firstly, and what I'm going to do now is just spend a minute going through this slide, and then we're going to head over to Zoom, and I'll practically show you exactly what you need to do in Zoom, so it's all familiar to you. So I want this to be as practical as possible. So do ask me any practical questions, stick them in the Q&A, and I'll cover them off at the end. So to do webinars, you do need a paid account, right? But it's not expensive. You need a pro version, and then you need to have the webinar add-on. In total, it costs about £45. So it's about £12 for or 10, £12, depending on whether you pay in advance or pay monthly for the pro version of Zoom. And then the webinar add-on is about £32 a month. You can pay monthly. So even if you just did it for 1 month and then canceled it, well worth it. 40 quid to do a webinar, to get in front of potentially 100 people. Contrast that with putting on an in-person event in a local hotel. How much that would cost you? It is nothing in comparison to the benefit that you will be giving to your clients and to yourself in turn, in terms of the additional exposure, awareness, and positioning of you in your network and amongst your audience will give you. Set up registration page. Okay, so let's head over to Zoom so I can show you practically how it's all done. Right, so you probably all have a Zoom account by now. I think the whole world does now, doesn't it? Lucky founder of Zoom, who's now worth over, I think, £8 billion or dollars since lockdown. So he's done well out of it. Right, so this is what you would see in your profile when you create a Zoom account, right? So as you can see here, my user type is webinar 100. So I've added that, and plans and pricing. So it's this one I have. So I have the Pro, $11.99 a month. And then I have added on video webinar. So once you add on the Pro, once you've got the Pro version, you can then just buy now, and then you have access to do webinars to cater for 100 attendees. 100 is more than enough. You can then have add-ons to accept more attendees. But I think initially when you're starting out, 100 is more than enough. If you need to add it, then you can do that separately. Right, so I go back into my profile. So you go into the webinar section to actually set up the webinar, right? And what I will do is actually I'll go to the webinar that I did for my clients, so I can talk you through the settings in that, because that will be the most relevant. So it's a case of you'll just go to create a webinar. It will ask you for a topic. So you put in the topic. It will ask you for a description. You put in a brief description. It will ask you for obviously the time and date, the video, whether you want that to be on for yourself and the panelist. Clearly yes, for yourselves. It will ask you about webinar options, whether you want the Q&A. Yes, you do. Enable practice session. That's important. Make sure enable practice session is ticked. That just means that when you actually start the webinar, it won't broadcast live until you push a button to broadcast. It just enables you to get all your setup correct, unlike me. It's at the beginning, you get your setup correct, your Zoom backgrounds and everything. So, and test your audio and video. So that's all working okay, enables you to do that. And then you can have the button tick to record the webinar automatically on the local computer, or you can actually save it in the cloud. Zoom gives you 1 gig of space. So it's probably only enough for one webinar. If you're only doing one, it's fine. Otherwise, just have it to record somewhere on your local computer. So the first section is the invitation section, right? If you have a co-host, then you will invite them on as a panelist. We'll talk about co-host later. So I had a co-host with me who is an employment law specialist. So I added him as a panelist. So the difference between panelists and attendees, panelists are those who will actually be co-hosts with you, and attendees are obviously all the people that register for the webinar. Zoom will create a registration URL for you. And what that means is Zoom will create a page that you can use. So if I copy that, and if I put that into a separate browser, okay, it's over now. Obviously it's over now, so it's not allowing me to register, but it automatically, so this is something where you're probably wondering, oh, you know, how do I set up a page for people to register? Zoom automatically does it for you. Let me go back and actually show you for a, would it be available for the current one? It might not be because it's already in, oops. All right, so that's still live. Okay, so this is the registration page for the webinar that you are on. And it does the page for you. You can, I'll show you where to add your logo in. And it basically is very simple. It's like a landing page for them to register for the webinar. First name, last name, email address, that's it. And what you do is share that URL, this URL here, with people when you are trying to promote it. Okay, let's just go back to this one. Okay. Now, this down here, so as you can see, I had how many signups? So what this is kind of, this section here you may or may not want to do. I find it was quite useful. So what you can do is you can create separate links that enable you to track where your signups came from. So here, all you need to do is click on the add button, right? And say you wanted to, you were going to be promoting this through your email list, through LinkedIn, through a WhatsApp group, and through Facebook. You can set up different links, URLs, for each of those, and then you can track, Zoom will track for you where your registrations came in from. So, you know, I can just put on here, Facebook, right? I add that and automatically it creates me another link here that I could use. And then I just hover over it to copy the URL. And then in my Facebook post, I would paste that URL instead of the main registration one. So then Zoom then can track for me where my registrations have come from. So as you can see here, when I did this, we had 31 from LinkedIn, we had 7 from WhatsApp, we had 15 from the mentoring group, and the rest all just came from, must have come from an email list because we emailed it out to our clients. So here at the bottom, you can see registrants, so 88 people registered. And if you click on the view attendee report, that then brings that up. Okay, so appreciate it's all very techy, but if you've got any questions relevant to this page, happy to answer. So Nadia, would you just type YouTube for YouTube? Yes, that's basically just the source name. What you type is up to you. It just allows you, when you go back into this, to remember what link was that created for. So yeah, if you were doing on YouTube, just call it whatever you like. That's just for you to keep track. It's not anything, any technical point. Okay, so the next thing is you move along the tabs. So you see here, there's the next tab is email settings, right? In here is, I wouldn't muck about with this too much. It's pretty standard in terms of the invitation email that goes out, but you can edit them in terms of what Zoom sends out. So Zoom will typically, if someone registers for the webinar, they'll say, right, you're now registered. Here are the details to log in at the time, and it will automatically then send them. You turn on these reminders. You can turn on the reminder to send 1 hour and 1 day before the webinar. So what they get is they'll get a confirmation email automatically sent upon registration, and then they'll get a reminder email like you did for this webinar 1 hour and 1 day before. So that's all done automatically. Branding, so moving along to branding, this is where you can just put in your logo at the front and that will appear on the page. You can put pictures of yourself and any co-host and a description, and that will appear on the registration email as well. You can choose a theme color for your webinar registration if you wanted to. Now, coming down here, something I was going to talk about, but we can cover off here. You can have your attendees directed to a site of your choice after the webinar has ended. So typically, what I did was that you can actually set up a survey in SurveyMonkey to gather feedback from whoever attended, and you can put that URL within Zoom in the settings here. And what it will do is when the webinar is over and they leave the meeting, they will receive a message to click on that link to complete your survey. So that's quite a useful way of using this post attendee URL within Zoom. If you use SurveyMonkey, you can create a free account or whatever, even if that was just a Google form. If you just create a Google form that you wanted to send people to give you feedback, you know, Google is free, you could put the same Google form link into that URL as well. Right, so polls. Similar to what I did at the beginning, this is where you can create a poll. Very easy to do. You just click add, you write your question, you write the choice options that you want people to give. And then when you're on the webinar, you will have on your control panel a polls button. And quite simply, all you do is when you want to start the poll, you click on the polls button, you choose which poll it is. You can have 2, 3, 4, you know, as many polls as you want, and you can just set it to live, and people will see that on the screen, and that will just help to get a bit of audience interaction going. Again, Q&A settings, just leave them on as default. Nothing really to change in that one. I don't want to worry about integration or live streaming, unless you wanted to live stream on your, say, a Facebook group or something, or YouTube channel. Then I wouldn't do that through here. You can actually do that when you're live. So when I'm live now on my panel, I can see a button which says more in the settings. And on that, if I hover over it, it gives me the option to go live on Facebook or live on YouTube. That takes a bit of fiddling around with. So if you are doing that, just make sure you do that a couple of minutes before you go live, because there is some more information you need to fill in on Facebook end before it connects the two together. Good. So hopefully I've shown you how easy it is to actually set up the webinar. Let's go back to the slide. So I think I've covered off the setup. Now, so how do we promote it? So we've gone in, we've set up our webinar, we've set up our Zoom account, we've set up our webinar with the details. How do we now go about promoting it? Right. Oh, wow. Bev is saying, I was given a Zoom coupon code today to get 50% off. The code is 2019 soup. I have just used it and it worked. Brilliant, Bev. That's fantastic. So all of you, even more motivation to get your own Zoom paid account, because it's 50% off, and that will really force you to get a webinar done. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that, Bev. So how do you promote the webinar once you've set it up? The first thing you need to do is, this is clearly the main audience is going to be your clients. You want to add value to your clients in a one-to-many situation. So use your client list. You must have your own clients in a list, in an email list. If you don't have MailChimp, if you don't have a CRM system, then I urge you to get a CRM system. Use something like MailChimp, where you can put in your prospects' email addresses, where you can put your client email addresses, so it's easier for you to do mailers at whenever you like. That's really important part of marketing, to actually build your list. MailChimp is free. You can set up a free account initially with your client email addresses. So get them all in there, set up your MailChimp with, you know, your colors, your branding, all the rest of it. So you can do a mail shot. I've got the email template for you as well, which I will show you. So this is what I'll be sharing with you. Email sent to prospects, so you get that. Email sent to clients. These are all part of the resources. So you can then just tweak those emails to top and tail them. I've got a follow-up email, which I'll be giving you, and an example social post as well. and an example of the graphic I used. So no excuses, guys. All the resources will be on their way to you. So in addition to your email list, you can invite prospects too. So like I said, it's a great way to raise awareness of yourself, to do your marketing. And you can therefore promote via social media channels. Via your LinkedIn profile, I would put a post out on LinkedIn in terms of, I'd probably do one week before and then a day before on that same day, depending on whether you're doing it in the afternoon. Put it on your company Facebook page, circulate it in your WhatsApp groups to say this is what you're doing, and people are welcome to come on board to find out about all the support available. Promote it everywhere you can. And that last point in there is about tracking registration. So like I said, we went into the settings and showed you how to do that depending on where you are promoting it. So this is your chance, guys. Once you've set up the webinar, you want to get it out in as many channels as you can, email and all social media channels that you are on, to show that you are being proactive. So how do we deliver it now? Well, preparation is key. So the first thing to do, we've already set up in Zoom, so that's been done and dealt with. Prepare your content. So I've given you the slides. Go through my slides, change the colors, put your logo on, update it for the latest information, make sure you're familiar with the content. Don't worry about not knowing everything or being caught out by a question that you can't answer. You will know a hell of a lot more than anyone on that call, unless there's some smart aleck accountant that comes on and just trying to give you a hard time, which is unlikely to happen. But you will know a hell of a lot more than everyone on that call, and they will find whatever you have to say extremely valuable. So don't worry that you don't have all the answers. You know enough, and in fact, you know more than enough to have content that you can share and answer questions that will come your way. So please don't worry about that side of things. You're more than capable, competent, and have enough information in there because of what you've been doing, because of the clients that you've been helping, because of what you've been reading. The amount that you have read and seen in the Facebook groups and seen online pales in comparison to anything that your clients have seen or read. They're probably only just keeping up with the daily news briefing. So please do not worry about not knowing enough. You know way more than is required to do this. Next thing I do is test your equipment beforehand. So like I said, put Zoom into broadcast mode, but even before that, just test your video out, test your audio out. What you can do in Zoom is actually, and what I actually record my videos that I do on LinkedIn in Zoom. I basically open up Zoom and I start a meeting just with me, just with myself. I record it because it's easy to do so. I can, and another reason I do this in Zoom is because Zoom is a really good feature. It sharpens you. So it kind of, makes you look a little bit better. It's as if you've got, makeup on, which, other software doesn't do. So I quite like that feature. And I use that to record my LinkedIn videos. So I just go in, start a meeting just with me. I will record, press record, and then just turn it off. And it will then save that file to my local drive. So you can do something similar to do a test run beforehand. You can just go into normal Zoom meetings, start a meeting with yourself, record something, let it save, go back into it, see how it sounds, see the video set up okay, check the audio is okay. So you know that's all running. Enable the practice session. So we covered that off. Backup, have a backup laptop. So what I always suggest is to have, like you can see down here, I'll pick it up. I have my laptop, which I have logged into. So what I do is I register for my own webinars using another email address. And then after I have started the webinar, I would then go in on my laptop and I would log on to the webinar like you guys are. And what that enables me to do is to see what you are seeing. So just to check that when I'm sharing screens and all the rest of it, that it's all okay. And that definitely helps. So I would recommend you do that. Have a backup laptop so you can see what others are seeing. I would also have a backup microphone and webcam just in case. It happened to me actually on the webinar that I did for my clients week before last. I've never had a problem with my mic before that I'm using now, my podcaster mic. And on that day, for some reason, I think it was because Zoom were doing updates every day because everyone was using it and there were security issues and they kept changing it and having updates. So I think that stopped my mic from working. So when I went live, my normal microphone wasn't working. And it was a bit of a disaster. But thankfully, all it needed was a restart of my computer. But because I'd gone live, I couldn't restart. But thankfully, my webcam here, so my Logitech webcam, has an inbuilt mic. So I was able to revert within Zoom to using that mic instead. So always have a secondary mic on hand, or worst come to worst, if that had failed, then I had my laptop as well. So worst come to worst, I could have just done the whole thing off my laptop. So have a backup, have a contingency. You never know when the tech might fail you, but do the trial run beforehand so you know everything's working, and hopefully it stays that way throughout the course of your webinar. Next is to create a Zoom virtual background. So as you can see, I have a virtual background, which you can do very easily. What I would recommend is go to canva.com. It's like a design thing. You can have a free account and they have Zoom backgrounds on there. So there'll be a section for Zoom backgrounds, which you can choose your own, if it's an office or whatever it might be. And then, just stick your logo on it, just so it looks nice and professional. I'm using a green screen, but you don't have to. As long as you are behind a plain wall, it will display your Zoom background, and as long as you have the required running speeds on your laptops or your computers, which hopefully should not be an issue. And lastly, in terms of preparation, ask a colleague to attend. Now, it's not essential, but I haven't got anyone today. But normally my mentoring sessions, I ask Karen to join me, just in case there's things going on in the chat box, which she could answer. If there's any tech issues and I'm busy delivering the webinar, then to have someone on hand to answer those issues and to send me a private message in the chat box, then it's quite handy to have a colleague to attend, which is quite useful. Particularly if you're doing it for the first time. If you do have someone that can kind of help you just as an attendee, just to sit in the background and answer any questions that come in the chat box or any other, any logistical, operational type thing, signposting, then it's always handy and helps for your audience to keep engaged if they are getting immediate answers to their questions. Something unlike I'm doing today because I'm trying to do everything at once. But like I said, I will answer your questions, don't worry, at the end. So next bit is, so I just seen a quick question from Manaf. How good is the inbuilt mic for Logitech webcam? It's not great. That's why I use the Rode Podcaster mic, which is this one here. So the Rode Podcaster is very good, but it's quite expensive. If you're doing them regularly, it's definitely worth the investment. If I just change, you'll see the difference. Right, so now I'm using the Logitech webcam. How bad does that sound compared to what I'm using at the moment? You can answer me in the chat box, anyone. Does that sound bad, worse, same? Not good. Big difference, there you go. So that is a big difference. Oh yeah, everyone, see, it's so important. Well, let me change back. Sounds like a hello hole, exactly, because it's quite far away from me, whereas these podcaster mics, they're expensive for a reason. You get what you pay for, right? Okay, back to the good old podcaster. So it's worth investing in a mic because audio is really important. People will forgive if the video's not quite there, not quite crisp, but they won't forgive poor audio. This is especially important if you're doing videos, if you're doing video content and things. If the audio is bad, we generally tend to switch off because it's just annoying. So if there was a priority, I would say get the audio, invest in your audio first, and then you can invest in your video later. So like I've done, the webcam is okay, even though the SLR that I've got, which isn't quite working properly yet, is much crisper in terms of video. The webcam, the Logitech, does okay. But the mic on it isn't great, and that's why I use the Podcaster. It's a Rode Podcaster, Katrina. RODE. Okay, so we digress somewhat. Right, so what do we do when we go live. So I would suggest go live about probably 10 minutes beforehand, so you can test all your equipment. You can then broadcast. When you click broadcast, that means people can start joining. So you start to see your attendees list start to build up. And what I would suggest is what I normally do is to put myself on mute, and I would just share my screen with my first slide. And on my first slide, let me show you. It's much better if I show you, isn't it? So if I move this over here. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to send you. No, it's not. My bad. Where's it gone? I'm going to show Q&A. Here it is. Okay, so this is the one that I did. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's within PowerPoint, but what I do on the front slide, I have a little speech box here which says, whilst you're waiting, say hello in the chat box and put your question in the Q&A box. So it's still not quite the time for your webinar. You turn this on about 10 minutes before. People will start saying hello, where they're from, putting their questions. So when you go live, you already have something to talk about. You already have, people to say hi to, just to kind of connect with the audience, call out a few people's names, say hello, bit of small talk, that sort of thing. So I'd recommend you do that on your front slide, and you'll get a copy of these slides, so you can copy that. Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay, right, so you turn, so about maybe a couple of minutes before, depending on how you feel comfortable, then turn off the screen share and turn your webcam on to start welcoming people by name. So let them see your face. There are some people, I know some people have done this, and I've seen some accountants do this, where they don't show their face. They just have the slides on the entire time and they never turn their webcam on. And I personally find that a bit off-putting, because people want to see you. People want to see your face. They want to see your expressions. They want to feel as if someone is talking to them. It's much more engaging when you can see a person's face and hear them, and rather than just looking at a PowerPoint slide. So I'd really recommend that, if as much as you can do, showing yourself full on screen, the better. Obviously use slides to help you, but at the beginning and at the end, when you're doing the Q&A, turn the slides off and have your, you and full screen on your audience's laptops or computers, so they can connect with you, they can engage with you. That's really important. Tell them about the housekeeping. So again, this is in my slides. I've got a slide for this. Some people may not have been on Zoom webinars, so let them know about putting questions in the Q&A panel. That's really important for you, because you can track which questions have come in and tick them off as and when you've answered them. If everybody puts the questions in the chat box, it's just a long stream of text, and it's really hard to decipher what was a comment, what was a hello, what was a chat, or what was a question. And that's why it's important to let people know at the beginning to split their questions and comments into Q&A and chat box. Imagine you're just talking to one person. Don't get panicked and freak out that there's 100 people all watching you and judging you. Just imagine you're talking to one person, and hopefully that will calm your nerves and enable you to deliver an excellent presentation, which you are more than capable of doing. I know it. Set the expectations at the beginning in terms of agenda, the time frame, let people know how long they can expect to be on for, and the fact that you'll do the Q&A at the end, but encourage them to put in the questions as it comes into their minds, into the Q&A box, and you'll get to them at the end. This is when you go live, that's really your chance to showcase your credibility, your concern for your clients, and your value. So make the most of it. And as we said earlier, add polls for added engagement. So, if you want to split things up a bit, if you think that you might not have enough to talk about, you want to keep things going and more engaging, then set up polls. Set up 3, 4, 5 polls that you can ask maybe after every slide. The more polls, the better, I find. So how to handle a Q&A. So like I said, sorry, I'm looking at the Q&A box, and if there are any questions, lots of questions from Nadeem, but I think I've answered those. So if not, I'll answer at the end, my friend. How to handle the Q&A. So you go through the Q&A box. So people will have put questions in the Q&A and you tick them off once they are answered. If you can't answer, don't panic. Just say you'll get back to them. Try and stick to time. So if you've said the webinar is going to be an hour long, including questions or excluding questions, and you get to the hour, then do stick to it and allow people to just, so let them know to say that we've been going on for an hour. I did say it would last an hour, but I'm happy to hang around for questions. So feel free, if you need to go, not a problem, but I'm happy to hang around for questions to answer any questions you may have. Add survey to the end. So we talked about the post attendee URL within Zoom as well. So how can you add more value to the webinar? Well, invite a co-host. So what I did was I invited an employment law specialist, because clearly there were lots of questions around furlough. How do we deal with the employment law side of things in terms of this change of status for employees? So I reached out to one of my contacts, or my friends who runs his own HR employment law business, and said, look, would you like to come on board to answer questions? I'll handle all the marketing. I'll handle the setting up the webinar. All you need to do is come on as a panelist on the day. And he obviously jumped and said, yes, of course, because it's great for them. It's great exposure for them. But they're coming onto your webinar. So you will be getting the kudos for putting it on. You'll have your logos all over it. You'll be adding more value to your audience if you can pull in someone from a related field where even more value will be added. So examples are employment lawyers, anyone in HR, bankers to talk about, funding applications, that sort of thing. Think about any other professionals that can also add value, because the more value you can add to your audience, the better. And it also then enables you to share the load in terms of answering questions at the end, if you can have a co-host on the session. So what I did was I kind of did an introduction. I led it for the first 20 minutes and went through all the stuff about the support available for business owners, for those with employees, for director-only companies, for self-employed. Went through cash flows, how important that was, the loan applications. And then in the Q&A, I then invited the co-host on and said, look, now I'm opening up Q&A. We've got, Zamir here. He's going to answer any employment law related questions. And to be fair, he probably had to answer 90% of the questions, which is fine. Because, that's at the end of the day, we want to be able to answer our clients and prospects questions. So that definitely helps. If you don't know an employment lawyer, HR specialist, reach out to one. You're probably on LinkedIn. You're probably connected to one. There may be someone local in your area that you could reach out to, and just send them a message. Say, would you be interested in doing a joint webinar? Would you be interested in coming on board as a guest to my webinar? They would jump at the chance, because it's free exposure for them. It's additional marketing for them. And there's no harm in, directing people at the end to these specialists, because it's complementary. What we do is complementary to what they're doing. There is no threat from them in terms of the work we do and the work they do. They will also help. So once they know they're actually on it, then send them the link and say, look, now you promote it to your audience. So it allows you to get more people registered, because they can promote it to their audience, and you can get additional prospects coming on to see you go live. So again, additional exposure for you, marketing done for you by a co-host. And overall, it just adds way more value to your audience. So I'd definitely recommend that as a power tip, if you can, to reach out to somebody else in your audience who can come on board as a panelist with you. So once you've done the webinar, how do you follow up? Well, what I would do is you will have the whole list from Zoom in the attendee report. So you'll have everyone's email addresses. You'll know which ones attended, and you'll know which ones didn't attend. You can then have two separate emails, one going out to those that did attend and one that going out to those that didn't attend, or you could do the same email to both. So for the non-attendees, you can say, sorry to hear you didn't attend. Would you like a copy of the recording? I wouldn't immediately send it. I'd actually offer them a copy first. And then the ones that respond, so you want people to engage with you. You want to see which ones are the hot prospects. This helps with your marketing. So again, in a future mentoring session, we can cover this off as to how to kind of build your database, how to set up your nurturing sequences, how to tag individuals depending on how they've interacted with you, because different audiences will require different messaging. Someone who's only downloaded your book but done nothing else will require a different nurturing sequence than someone who has downloaded your book, attended your webinar, asked for more information. You get the more touch points that they've had with you, clearly they're more of a warm prospect. The way you talk to them in your emails is different to a colder prospect. So it's really important that you kind of get into the swing of these things in terms of knowing how to approach, rather than just send out a copy of the recording, see which ones are the warmer prospects that will bite on what you're sending out. And for your attendees, thank them for attending, offer the recording and any further assistance they may require. So we are nearly at 3 o'clock. Just to recap in terms of the resources that you get following today, you'll get a recording of today's session once it's been downloaded and uploaded. You'll get an email template to invite clients to your webinar rather. Email template to invite your prospects to the webinar. Example of social posts that you can adapt and use. The slides that I used to run the webinar, so you can adapt and change and use for yours. Recording of the webinar that I did a week or so back, and a copy of cash flow forecast. So again, it's important to kind of also put into the webinar, not just kind of information, but also show the value you're adding, show the things that you are doing with your clients that would be appealing to a prospect. Put yourself in a prospect's shoes and think, okay, well, how do you want to come across? You want to come across as someone who is proactive, is value adding, helping clients with their cash flow at this moment in time, dealing with real-time numbers, looking ahead, projections, forecasts. That's what we ought to be doing now. That's the kind of stuff we ought to be doing rather than dealing with history, year-end accounts, tax returns. So position yourself as someone who is dynamic, who adds real value, who focuses on the future, not the past. And that's why I threw in the cash flow forecast as an extra resource that people who are on the webinar can take away. However, we know in reality that people, although they have the forecast, they probably won't be able to use it in any meaningful way, and therefore will reach out to you for help. And that then allows you to then work with your, allows you a way into prospects for them to engage you, to helping them out with cash flows and things going forward. Right, so we're on to questions. That's just more info. You can do this. Okay, so just going back. Right, everyone, question time. Turn your webcams on, everyone, please. Let's turn our webcams on. Let me see your faces. And if you've got a question, then raise your hand and come on live. You can do this, guys. You can absolutely do this. Now, I don't know how this is going to work because I've never asked anyone to turn their webcam on before. So if at least one or two of you can do it, then I may get something through to perhaps accept. I don't know how to, can't see where it says to the webcam on. Good point. Okay. Okay, right. Okay, so this is new to me. I've never asked anyone to come on board, but hopefully if I figure it out, then I can show you, and then hopefully you guys can do the same. Okay, so next to each of your names, what I can see is, where's it gone? All I can see is allow you to talk. Okay, so if anyone wants to ask me a question, I'll give priority to those who raise their hand. So I think that's the way we'll do it. Okay, we might not be able to get everyone's webcams on, but certainly for those who want to ask a question, if you click the raise hand button and then let's see what happens. Okay, thank you. So 2 people have raised their hands. Tony, I'm going to get you on, Tony. I'm going to allow you to talk. Now Tony's come on. So this is how we do it. So when someone raises their hand, I click allow to talk, And now they are on. Tony, you are on. You're on live. Hey, Tony. I've unmuted you. Maybe you need to unmute yourself. If you unmute yourself, you can figure out how to unmute yourself, then you can ask the question. Nadeem, I'm going to allow you at the same time to see if yours happens sooner than Tony's.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hey, Nadeem.
Hi, everybody.
How are you, Nadeem?
I'm doing very good, yeah. I'm just stuck in my office here all alone.
You and me both.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I don't know how to turn on the...
your webcam.
I'm not allowed to do that at the moment. That's all right.
Yeah, you can turn your webcam on. Is there an option for you to turn on webcam? Can you see anywhere?
I can't see it anyway. Let's have a look. Audio, computer.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe there's I can't.
Maybe not. And there's nothing on my panel, so maybe it's something I need to look into in terms of the settings to allow attendees to stick their webcams on. Okay. Well, we learn something new every day.
Okay, very quickly. So I've got a couple of questions. You see some of them on Q&A. How do you look at the camera? Because I tell you what, I've done the first ever, I've done like a Zoom meeting this morning, and I kept looking at the screen, obviously, and my webcam is slightly higher. And it looked like I was always not paying attention. So one of my colleagues joked and said, look, are you really paying attention or are you on your phone? No, I said, I'm actually looking at myself on the monitor and at the camera. That's I guess the first one.
Okay, good. All right, let me answer that for you then. It is difficult. So I wish I could show you my setup here, but basically what I have is I have my webcam here. So now I'm looking at you because I'm looking at my webcam, but I also have my setup. So I've got two screens. I've got a screen to my left and I've got a screen to my right. So I have one screen where I have my Zoom control panels on my left where I can kind of see you guys and I can mess around with the Zoom, the Q&A, the chat box and all the rest of it. So I would recommend that you always have two screens at least when you are doing a live webinar. But then as and when you are talking, so I've got Zoom here on the left and I've got my slides on the right. So what I tend to do is I'll look at the slide, I'll change it, I'll check that you can see the same screen, the same slide that I'm seeing, and then I'll try and talk as much as I can into the webcam with, what I know is on the slide.
Is that in addition to your laptop, or are we talking about the second screen you've got there, which you're saying has got the slides? Is that the actual laptop, or is that an additional screen? That's laptop.
No, so my laptop is down here. It's not, that's me just coming on as an attendee.
Right.
What I have is kind of two monitor screens here on my desk. I guess it does help slightly that I've got a standing up desk. So they're kind of, they're set apart slightly. So I've got the webcam in the middle and I've got one on the left on a stand thing and then one on the right. But you could even do it on a sitting desk. You just have, one monitor on your left, one on your right, use two monitors, one with your slides, one with your Zoom panel, and with the webcam in the middle. So another tip for your webcam is to have it on a tripod. So buy one of these cheap tripods from Amazon, 10, 12 quid, and actually screw the webcam onto the tripod and put that on your desk. Yeah. And that will help you to then have something right in front of you that you can talk into, as opposed to it being on your laptop. When people are looking to the laptop and all you can see is the inside of their nostrils, which isn't very pleasant. So to avoid that, have, get the tripod and put your webcam on the tripod, and that definitely helps.
And there's just one final question. The second question was, like when you share the screen, I've been on some webinars where they accidentally show all their slides, and I don't try to avoid that. So how do you have it that, do you have like a PowerPoint already in full screen, and hence you just share that particular screen, or how does that work, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. When you share screen, automatically it will come up with which screen do you want to share. So it will just come up with all the windows you have open. You would click on your PowerPoint, go full screen, and it will then just reflect what is showing on your window.
Right. Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, Nadeem. Thank you for coming on.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Who's next? Bev. I think you came on next. Bev, do you have a question?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I've done quite a few Zoom videos even before all this coronavirus issues was about. So we're using that quite a lot anyway. I've just discovered the backgrounds. So I didn't know about what you said about Canva. So while you've been on, I've been listening to you, but I've also been on my Canva as well. So I've found one that I quite like. But the one that you've got in your background, is that from Canva, or how have you got that? Because there's not that many sort of professional ones in there, is there? I don't really want to do a webinar with a fish tank in the background.
Of course. I think it is. Maybe it's, do you have a paid account in Canva?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. I thought it was Canva. To be honest, I got my, the marketing assistant to go away and find a few. I thought she'd got them from Canva, but maybe not. So
there's a couple in there. I just can't see yours, but yours looks quite professional, so it's quite good. I want to pinch it.
No worries. Let me find out where she found them from, and I'll let you know.
Brilliant. Thank you.
If I don't remember, just do it. Send me a message in the Facebook group, and I'll reply.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bev. Right. Who do we have next? Who would like to, so I've got Tony. Tony, are you unmuted? I've unmuted you. Are you there? No, I don't think we've got Tony. All right, we'll go on to Carl. Carl, you got a question, mate?
Hi, Reza.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, very well, thank you. Very well.
Great session. That's really good, that, mate.
Thank you.
My question really is, I guess, a before and after COVID-19. Did you run webinars for your accountancy clients before this happened, and also prospects? And will you be doing it after?
Good question. The answer is no, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't, but clearly I had run it for my accountant audience. So I had been doing mentoring sessions, etc.
Sure.
Since last year. So I guess I was familiar with doing webinars, so it wasn't too difficult to actually set it all up. But it's definitely, in terms of the feedback that we got from clients was really good, was really overwhelming, in fact, in terms of how useful they found it. And clearly, you know, we all have, you know, 100, 200 clients or even more in some cases. And it's often, you know, you'll be surprised at which ones come on, and it'll be the ones that you least suspect.
Yeah.
And they'll come on and they'll be, you know, really grateful to hear from you, to partake in it, to see you on there. You know, will be definitely highly valuable for them. So for sure, it is a medium that I think we can use more often and should be really to try and you know, give more value to our clients.
No, yeah, I agree. I was really hoping to kind of steal some subject matter, really, in terms of because obviously everybody's got this in common at the moment.
Yeah.
But before and after this situation, trying to think of subject matters to put on that would include everyone. And yeah, you've got the basics like zero training and things like that. But I was hoping to steal some of your ideas, Reza, really.
Yeah, maybe we can you know, throw about some ideas in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I think, and see if I can come up with a few. But already, even off the back of that one, because of how really it is, you know, I want to get this across to everyone. I don't think this is going to take you hours to set up. And what I'd really encourage you to do is literally to say to yourself, to pick a date. So after today, just pick a date. So I'm going to go live next Tuesday or next Friday. Because once you've picked a date and got a deadline, it will force you to take action. I think going back, I did mine Friday before last, and we only decided we were going to do it on the Monday before that. And so we had to get everything done. But when you're driven, and I'm kind of deadline driven, so when you've got something to work towards, you get it done.
Sure.
Really not that difficult to set up.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Reza.
Cool. Take care, Carl.
You too, mate.
Right. So who else had a question? Deepak, you got a question?
Can you hear me?
Hey, Deepak, how you doing?
Hey, Reza. No, I think you've just answered it. It looks quite daunting, but I just wanted to say, how long did it take you to master this? Because as you can imagine, we're trying to do work, we're trying to do social media, we're trying to have a life, and then this comes in as well. Like, there's just so much. It feels like there's a lot to learn.
I know. No, it is. But what I would try and say to encourage you again is to, because I think someone mentioned at the beginning, we're getting bombarded, aren't we, from everywhere in terms of clients calling us asking for our help, and we're getting so many calls and emails a day this is a good way of actually reaching out to everyone in one go. And I think it definitely helps to actually reduce your workload in the long run, because you'll have answered 80–90% of the questions during that session for the ones that do attend. So actually there is, big benefit in reducing time and workload for you by investing in a one-off webinar to reach the masses in one go. So
okay. Thank you very much.
Motivation, I don't always. Cheers, Deepak. Take care. Okay, who else had a question? Anyone else want to ask a question? Just raise your hand and I can get you in. If not, I'll have a quick look at the Q&A panel to see if there's any other questions in there. So I think I've answered most of Nadim's. Oh, David is asking. Brilliant. Hey, David. Are you there,
Good
David?
day. Kudos for you for putting this webinar together. So my question is, right now I'm using Microsoft Outlook to track my clients, my prospects, my suppliers, my network. I'm looking for what type of CRM might be suggested so I can start this nurturing process and attract all of my prospects through the Zoom meetings when I have them. Any suggestions on a good CRM to start with, please?
Yeah, so there are many CRMs out there, and they all have, they all have their positives and negatives. It depends on what other kind of tech stack you have and whether you want full integration or not. What we have is, I found MailChimp is a great one for beginners. MailChimp also do landing pages as well now, but it's not as good as, say, Kajabi or ClickFunnels or something like that. So I guess it depends on how much email marketing you'll be doing and how powerful you need it to be in terms of adding tags or something like that to be able to separate your audiences into different types. So although I was initially with MailChimp, I've now moved across my email marketing and my landing pages to Kajabi. I find Kajabi is a bit more, got more features in it, is a bit more powerful, it's a bit more expensive, but it was only after I had been kind of exhausted and gone beyond the features of MailChimp that I made that move. But otherwise, MailChimp is more than sufficient for most people in doing targeted email campaigns. So in terms of personal experience, David, I've only really used MailChimp and Kajabi. I hear ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, again, are others which are pretty good email CRM systems. So maybe check those out together with 17 Hats.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, David. Take care. All right, so we had, I'm trying to get Tony on again. I think Tony had a question. I think Manaf had a question. Manaf, are you there? I've put you on.
Hello, can you hear me, Reza?
Hey, Manaf, I can hear you. Yes, how you doing?
Hi, not too bad, Reza. Thank you. I think it's the first webinar I've been on live with yourself. So,
brilliant.
Very valuable, and learned a lot from, what you can do with Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a few, and these were just like test trials, and because everyone went on to Zoom, so I had no time to understand all the features. So done a few, and one or two. The first one was awful. The second one was fine. The third one was, much better, but still got a lot of learning to do, and especially the confidence level as well. When you're actually speaking to people. So I think I'm not the only one. I think everyone probably seems the same. The fear factor as what other people, your clients will perceive you and see you. So, but one thing I want to ask you was, in terms of the webinars, when you're setting a time scale, how do you know that you need an hour, half an hour? So I was quite awful at getting the timing in terms of sometimes I might finish 30 minutes into my sort of webinar, although I given an hour.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend? That how do you time your webinars?
Good question. I think it's just, you never know exactly how long it's going to take. So just go for, rule of thumb. And generally, 60 minutes is probably the optimum time for, a webinar where you're delivering a lot of content and you want to allow time for Q&A. I guess if you're unfamiliar with how long you're going to take to go through your content, do a trial run yourself. So, turn your webcam on within Zoom, record a video, actually delivering the webinar as you would, going through all of your slides. And that will give you an indication of how long your bit will be. Then the balance can be for questions. So even if your slot ends up taking 30 minutes or 40 minutes, you've got 20 minutes for questions. When you get to the end of that 20 minutes, then you can allow people to go. But if there's still people on who want question answered, there's no harm with saying, look, you're happy to hang around and answer any questions. And I'd recommend you do that, because the more questions you answer, the better. You want people to take away value from your webinar.
Well, no, thank you. One thing is that if you do, say, for example, you're doing a regular webinar, but you do maybe 15 minutes or half an hour, is that a bad thing to do short ones, or is it always good to do an hour? What would you say?
Yeah, I'd say it depends. The time frame really depends on, I think it's not really the time frame. It's more about how long will it take you to deliver the amount of value that you want to get across. The longer you're in front of someone, it's valuable to have FaceTime with your prospects in particular, but also, your clients. So, the longer you're with them, the better. So I would say, maybe, and something like this, there is lots of content in terms of information to give, but also to allow people to engage in a Q&A. I'd say probably not less than 45 minutes to an hour at a minimum. Sometimes even 90 minutes would be required. If you've, say, got a co-host, certainly our one, we had, it went on beyond the hour because there were so many questions coming in. But luckily I had, the employment lawyer there who was then able to answer questions that kept coming from people. But then everyone, got value from it, and there was still at the end, 50 odd people still on it. And you'll get a good sense whether you're getting engagement, because you can see your attendees. And as the later on you get to it, you see your attendees kind of dropping. And as they drop by a big amount, it's probably signaled that you've kind of gone on for as long as required, and you can kind of bring it to a close.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks.
Welcome enough. Take care. All the best.
Reza, can you hear me?
Oh, hello, Tony. Yes, I can.
Hello, yeah. As long as you can't see me, that's fine. As long as you can hear me and not see me, that's fine. Fascinating. It was what they call Murphy's Law. All of the phone calls I'd made this morning, they were all returning them during the meeting. So I have missed about 10 minutes of it. It was fascinating. And I think the next one I'm going to have to do, or the first one I'm going to have to do, is probably for the self-assessment portal applications that are going to come out in whenever they could be. I suspect probably early May. Are you thinking of putting one on yourself, perhaps?
Sorry, your audio was very low, Tony. So I apologize.
Let me turn that up. Hang on a second.
I missed the beginning, but no, I did get most of what you said. I think your question at the end was, am I thinking of putting on similar webinars for self-assessment, right? Beginning of the tax season.
Specifically for the self-employed clients when they're completing their portal application for the support.
Of course, yeah. I wasn't planning on, but it is definitely a relevant point. And if that forms a big part of your clients, if most of your clients are self-employed and they would get value and benefit from that, then I'd definitely encourage you to go for it. To absolutely put one on, yeah, for sure. It's
such a changing landscape. I don't really know. You just don't know what's going to pop up tomorrow, really, do you? But,
Absolutely, absolutely, and you'll know, being in the space, you'll know a lot of more than what self-employed individuals out there will know, and it's much easier for them to jump on board a webinar and hear something straight from a professional than it is to go through the reams of information on government and other websites. So it's definitely an easier way for people to absorb information, and that's why I'd recommend and encourage everyone.
I have a feeling that the way work is already starting to slow down, that we're all going to have an opportunity to get a bit more proficient on the Zoom technology anyway, unfortunately.
Definitely.
Thanks very much indeed. Very helpful. Thank you.
Very welcome. Any other questions, just feel free to give me a shout in the Facebook group.
Thank you.
Right, brilliant. Thank you for that, Tony. So any other questions? Okay, just no more people raising their hands. So I'll just quickly go through the questions in the Q&A panel, and then we'll call it a day. Right, so Gordon is saying, please take a pic of your setup for resources. Thank you. Okay, Gordon, will do. Dave, do you have it integrated with Kajabi? I don't have Zoom integrated. No. How do you do the summary under your videos in LinkedIn, e.g. when you say, this is what I am saying? Nadeem, not quite sure about that question, what you mean by that. How do you do the summary under your videos on LinkedIn, e.g. when you say, this is what I'm saying? If you could just clarify, Nadeem, please. Jody's asking, how do you deal with nerves about appearance and how voice sounds? Good question, Jody. So it's just through practice, Jody. It's just through practice. And I'd recommend that you just turn your webcam on and just start talking and record a video for yourself first. Send it to a friend, ask them to give you feedback, and then take that feedback on board. But what I would say to you is that we are our worst critics. You know, these voices in the head are the worst voices, and you don't want to listen to any of those. Ignore what the voice in your head says about how you sound or that you're nervous. Just imagine yourself just talking to your favorite client. So imagine that your client has come into the office, or you're having coffee and you're just taking them through the information about what's gone on, how they can claim, and hopefully that will help you relax. Because if you're an introvert, I'm an introvert, most accountants are introverts, it's actually a blessing in disguise having to do a webinar, because being on a stage to have the same effect as a webinar, so actually being in front of potentially 100 people, if you mirrored that and compared that with actually being on a stage in front of 100 people, how nerve-wracking, how much scarier would that be compared to this, where you're just talking to a camera, as if you're just talking to a friend or your favorite client and taking them through the the landscape of what's happening. So try and imagine that, do a trial run. Another thing I suggest, guys, is to have your setup such that it's really easy. It makes it easy for you to come in and record a video. That means, so don't have your webcams hidden away in a drawer somewhere that it's such an effort for you to get everything out, connect it all up and record a video. So this is one of the first things I did when I knew I had to do videos. I just set everything up so it's directly in front of me. I've got my webcam there, the mic is fully set up. So now when I know if I need to record a video, I simply open up Zoom and I press record. It literally takes me 5 seconds. And that's what we need to do. We need to make our environment and our atmosphere conducive to doing the things that we need to do, that we know we need to do, like videos. So that's something else I'd recommend. Jody, hope that helps. You can absolutely do this. All right, so Nadeem, what if no one turns up? Shall we still run it? Nadeem, people will turn up, don't worry. You will get, even if you get 5 or 10 people, I'd run it anyway. You will have, I'm sure if you send it to your client list, it's different if you were just doing something for prospects only, but the fact that you're doing it for clients, you're going to get, 5, 10, 15, 20, probably a lot more than that actually join. But bear in mind is that your audience never sees, I don't think you guys can see how many people are on this, can you? So your audience will never know. Even if there's 2 or 3 people on, your audience won't know. So, feel free to talk as if it doesn't matter. You're just talking as if you're talking to one person. So it's good practice. I recommend, even if you only have 5, 6 people, just do it anyway, because you'll get the recording and then you can use that recording again to email out to your prospects to say, look, you didn't register for it. Would you like a copy of the recording? In it, I went through X, Y, and Z. And again, it provides you with some valuable content to then share. Rita's asking, do you always do your webinar standing up as if doing a normal presentation? What standing desk are you using? Yes, Rita, I do, but that's because I have a permanent, well, it's an adjustable desk, but I generally keep it in standing mode. So I try and, since I got it, I just try and stand as much as I can, because sitting was just bad for posture, bad for my back. When I was going to my chiropractor, he kept telling me that I sit too much. So I made a decision to get a standing desk, and it's helped immensely. You can still do a webinar standing. What standing desk I use, I don't know what make it is, but it was bought secondhand. It was about £200. But yeah, I'm sure you can Amazon it and find a standing desk, or actually you get these ones I've seen for about £70, which are like adjustable shelf. So if you have a normal desk, you put that shelf on your desk, and then it has a button where it goes up and down to allow you to stand and still work, say on your laptop or on your screens, using your same desk that you have. Brilliant. Guys, I would love to hear, you can absolutely do this. Hopefully you've got all the resources you need, but if there's anything else when you're setting it up, if you've got a question, if you don't have something, just reach out, send me a message on the Facebook group, and I'm more than happy to help. I want you guys to do webinars because it is it'll make a massive difference to your confidence, to your ability to get started on the video journey, to the value that you can add to your existing clients, to the perception of value that your clients will have of you will increase. The value that your prospects will see that you're adding will increase. There are so many benefits of running your own webinar. So guys, just do this. You can absolutely do it. You have all the skills. You have now the confidence. You've got the tools, the step-by-step process. You can do this. And I look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. All right, guys, take care. All the best. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.